Indonesian economy, the first quarter of this year managed to grow by 5.11%, 5.1%. How do you view Indonesian economy continuing to grow despite relying on domestic consumption?
Certainly, I think the economy grew 5.1%, which was along our expectation. Our forecast was also for 5.1. And at the starting of the year, there were a couple of drivers which were behind growth. I think firstly was the pre-election spending. Elections happened in February, starting of the year. From late last year, you had seen election-related spending, and at the same time, you also have the early part of the festive spending that was also in that quarter. So both these tailwinds, I think, helped growth. If you see the breakdown as well, government consumption, political parties spending, all of that seems to have helped. While investments were, posted a bit of slower growth, again, not surprising because elections were around that time. And you also saw trade, which continues to slow down. So investments and trade didn't participate in boosting growth. I think it was to a great extent consumption demand led by the government as well as what we call the non-profit, private spending as well.
For the last maybe 6 or 7 months to close the 2024, what is the factor for Indonesian's economic growth depends?
That's a very important question because, since last year, everybody was speaking about whether elections are going to be one phase or there's going to be two phases, whether we'll have to return to vote in June, July. But what you've thankfully seen is that February produced a very clear winner. While the results were out much later, you already knew in the opinion polls that there was a very clear winner. So that provides a kind of stability. Because going forward, then investors can actually resume investments. You can see some of the state-owned companies as well as corporates don't have that political uncertainty anymore. They know who's going to come into office in October. So we do think that is going to help. And at the same time, if you've seen the FDI numbers also for the first quarter have been quite strong, which means the downstreaming continues to play out. And the third one is, of course, consumption. Consumption is the main driver. And you've seen some social sector spending, some El Nino aid has been extended. The new government also wants to do a bit more social sector spending. So these things we think will help consumption as well. But monetary policy is still tight, so you will have some impact from that. But on the year, we have a 5% growth forecast for Indonesia.
As you say before, there are factors like 2 factors with driving economic growth in the first quarters of this year's. It's like a consumptions and investments. How do you see these 2 factors becoming important for the Indonesian's economic growth for investments or consumptions, especially investment?
Sure. It is very important. This is a time when for Indonesia, for instance, domestic investments as well as foreign FDI has been quite strong. In fact, last couple of years, it's been hitting record highs. When you see under the hood, it is essentially a base metal processing, smelters, all of that is attracting a lot of investments. So in this environment where there's a supply chain reconfiguration going on, it is important for all countries, or rather the governments are keen to attract as many investments as possible. So I think that will remain very much in focus. At the same time, the domestic businesses as well, like I mentioned before, the election uncertainty is behind them. So they will be also able to put in capital expenditure, go ahead and take. So you can see even credit growth actually was quite strong in the first quarter of the year. So investments certainly very important. I think it's going to be one of the important drivers for growth this year, apart from consumption. But consumption is a bigger weight. So, you need better investments to become better job creation, job opportunities to help consumption do better as well.
You see that the investment is a very important, especially for mining or the hillerizations. So how about the our new capitals movement, or IKN? We always say IKN. How do you see the climb of investment on that our new capital?
That has been certainly one of the main projects that the outgoing government has been very keen on. I think they've pursued it very well. In fact, they have clear plans of moving some part of the public sector employees later this year, probably in August, September. So that seems to be on track. At this point, I think the investments are quite focused on the government contribution. But I think as foreign investors, as private sector sees that the capital is here to stay, there is going to be more and more movement of activity towards that center. You will tend to see more investments. At this point, I think all investors are on the sidelines waiting to see, what kind of milestones will be covered. And of course, you need the new incoming government to also follow up with those, because this is going to, again, be a 3 to 5 year agenda to be able to create a very thriving capital city which is away from Jakarta.